Okay, so let's unpack this. It is January 18th, 2026. Yesterday, the official results for the Ugandan presidential election finally dropped. And look, the numbers are huge, definitely something we need to get into. But the story that really grabbed me this morning wasn't about a ballot box.
No?
It wasn't even about the percentages. It was about, of all things, a plane ticket.
A one-way ticket, to be specific, and issued under some very, let's call them persuasive circumstances.
Exactly. We are talking about the breaking news regarding Sky News Africa correspondent Yusra El-Bougher. Basically, a major international news crew has just been expelled from Uganda.
Right.
They didn't just lose their press pass. They were, put on a plane and physically removed from the country.
And not just asked to leave politely. This was an expulsion. And the timing here, it's absolutely critical to understanding the bigger picture. This isn't happening in a vacuum at all.
No.
It's happening alongside a nationwide internet blackout, a highly disputed election result, and reports of lethal force on the streets.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We aren't just looking at one arrest. We are looking at what feels like an information war around this election. We've got the reports on the Sky News incident, data on the blackout, the official results from yesterday, January 17th, and the opposition's very loud reaction to them.
It really is a case study in modern narrative control. If you want to understand how a regime secures a seventh term in 2026, you don't just look at the voters. You have to look at who's allowed to watch those voters.
And who's forced to look away.
Precisely.
Right. It's about who holds the camera. So let's start with the event that triggered all this. Yusra El-Bougher, she's Sky News Africa's correspondent. She's a known quantity in the region. What actually went down?
Well, according to the reports we have, El-Bougher and her crew were on the ground in Kampala covering the aftermath of the election. And you have to remember the context. Tensions were already just sky high.
Sure.
And they started filming a specific incident involving police and military forces.
And what were those forces doing? Because usually, if you're just filming crowd control, that's one thing.
Well, this was more than that. Allegedly, they were beating supporters of the opposition leader, Bobi Wine.
Okay, so they turned the camera on a beatdown.
They did. They caught state violence on tape. And the reaction from the authorities was almost immediate. The crew was detained. Now, this is where the official language gets fascinating and, honestly, a little dystopian. After being detained, they were reportedly escorted out of the country. And the justification given, it was for their own safety?
Their safety? Wait, let me get this straight. They were filming an assault, they got arrested, and then they were kicked out of the country to keep them safe.
That is the official line. We are escorting you out for your own protection.
That is just, it's so rich. The irony, we're going to protect you by forcing you to leave the place where you're trying to do your job. It's like they're redefining safety in real time.
It's a very convenient definition, isn't it? It frames the state as the benevolent protector rather than the aggressor.
Right.
But it's important to note, El-Bougher wasn't just parachuting in for the day. She had been there. She had actually interviewed President Yoweri Museveni before this. She knew the stakes.
So she wasn't an outsider who just, accidentally walked into a restricted zone. She knew exactly what she was seeing.
Exactly. And that's what makes her dangerous to the narrative. When you have a credible witness with a massive international platform documenting alleged violence, safety becomes a very useful pretext for removal.
It effectively creates a blind spot.
A blind spot that the state desperately needed at that exact moment.
But, and this is where it gets bigger, she isn't the only one, right? Sky News is the big headline, but local journalists have been dealing with this for weeks.
Oh, for months, really. If we zoom out, you see this isn't an isolated incident at all. It's part of a systematic pattern. For a local journalist in Kampala, life has been incredibly difficult.
Yeah, can you run us through that timeline? I feel like some of this got lost in the pre-January news cycle.
Sure. So go back to December 15, 2025. You have Brian Sinkumba from Channel 44 TV. He's out covering a political procession. Pretty standard campaign stuff.
Right.
He gets arrested. The charge, public nuisance.
Public nuisance for covering a campaign event. That's one of those classic catch-all charges, isn't it?
It's a classic tool. It's so vague it could apply to almost anything. If you are standing where the police don't want you to stand, you are a nuisance. It basically criminalizes the act of observation.
So that was December.
Right. Then fast forward to just a couple of weeks ago, January 5th. Ivan Abadi from BBS TV. He's covering Bobi Wine's campaign. Reports say he was allegedly assaulted by security forces.
So we go from a nuisance charge to actual physical assault. That's a clear escalation.
And then to expulsion with the Sky News team.
Yeah.
It's a gradient of silence. But the biggest move, the one that affected everyone, wasn't against a single person. It was against the infrastructure itself.
The blackout.
The blackout. Right around Election Day, January 15, authorities imposed a nationwide internet blackout.
And I think we need to pause on that. In 2026, an internet blackout isn't just about not being able to check social media.
No, it's much more fundamental. When we say blackout, we mean a near-total shutdown. Regulators order the ISPs to cut connections. No WhatsApp, no Twitter, no Facebook. But critically, in East Africa, it often hits mobile money services.
Right. So much of the economy there runs on mobile payments.
Exactly. So you aren't just cutting off news, you're hurting businesses, vendors, everyday people just trying to buy food. It inflicts real economic pain.
So why do it? Why would a government do that to its own people during an election?
Because the alternative, the free flow of information, is seen as the bigger threat. The official reason given was to prevent misinformation.
Prevent misinformation. That's the phrase that always comes up, just like safety.
It is the twin pillar of the strategy. And look, to be fair, misinformation is a real problem in elections, globally. Nobody denies that. But when you shut down the entire grid, you aren't just stopping fake news. You're stopping all news. As of today, the 18th, services are only partially restored.
So for the critical days, the voting, the counting, and the announcement, Uganda was effectively in the dark.
Correct. And that leads to a very simple, very dangerous equation. No internet plus no independent journalists equals silence. Or, well, a monopoly on the truth.
Which brings us to the story the state is telling, the results. Yesterday, January 17th, the Electoral Commission dropped the numbers, and the name at the top is not a surprise.
Not at all. Yoweri Museveni.
81 years old, securing a 7th term. And this is a presidency that started back in 1986.
Yeah, to put that in perspective for you, when Museveni took power, the Berlin Wall was still standing. The internet as we know it didn't exist. He's been the dominant force for generations.
And the margin wasn't close, was it?
No. According to the official count, he took approximately 71.65% of the vote.
That is a landslide by any definition.
It is. The runner-up, Bobi Wine, his real name is Robert Kyagulanyi, he received about 24.72%.
So a nearly 50-point gap. That suggests total dominance.
And Museveni's victory speech really captured that confidence. He called the result a taste of the strength of his party, the NRM, and he urged everyone to just accept it.
A taste of the strength. That is a power flex if I've ever heard one. But obviously, Bobi Wine isn't looking at that 24% and just, moving on.
Far from it. The opposition has completely rejected these results. They're calling them fake and a sham.
And what's their evidence? I mean, beyond the fact that they lost. Because sometimes claims of fraud can sound like sour grapes, but they seem to have specific allegations here.
They do, and the tech angle is crucial. Uganda uses biometric voter identification kits. You show up, scan your fingerprint, the machine confirms who you are. It's meant to stop people voting twice.
A technological safeguard. Sounds good on paper.
It does. But the opposition alleges there was a widespread failure of these machines, particularly in opposition strongholds.
So what happens when the machine fails?
Well, the protocol allows officials to revert to a manual list, and that's the vulnerability. Once you go manual, the digital trail vanishes. It becomes much easier to stuff ballot boxes because that biometric lock is gone.
So they're saying the safeguards broke conveniently, allowing for manual manipulation.
Exactly. So you have this massive gap between the official landslide and the opposition, claiming the whole process was broken at the mechanical level.
So we have a disputed result, a media blackout, arrested journalists. What's the actual vibe on the ground now? Is Kampala celebrating?
You would not see a celebration. You wouldn't see much of anything. The atmosphere is described as high tension. Kampala is essentially under lockdown. Heavy military and police presence, armored vehicles, businesses are closed, the streets are largely deserted.
It sounds more like a curfew than a party.
It does. But there are pockets of resistance. We've seen reports of scattered civil unrest, particularly in places like Magere, which is Bobi Wine's stronghold, youths burning tires, that sort of thing.
And the police response?
Tear gas, for sure. But reports also indicate live rounds have been used. We're seeing figures of between 7 and 10 protesters killed in clashes since Election Day.
Wow. 7 to 10 people.
Yeah. And amidst all this chaos, there's this giant question mark hanging over the opposition leader himself. Where is Bobi Wine?
This part's so confusing. Some reports say house arrest, some say he's missing. What do we actually know?
It depends entirely on who you ask, which just goes back to this information war we're talking about. The police claim they are providing him with protection.
There's that word again, protection, just like with the Sky News crew.
It's the theme of the week.
Mm-hmm.
The police say they're protecting him, which looks an awful lot like house arrest surrounding his property, stopping anyone from going in or out.
Okay, so that's the government line.
But Bobi Wine's camp, the NUP, is telling a completely different story. He claims he actually escaped a military raid on his home Friday night and is now in an undisclosed location. He's in hiding.
So the government says, we have him safe at home. And he says, I'm on the run from you.
And he adds that while he got out, his family remains under house arrest. So you have this bizarre situation where the government claims a protective role over a candidate who says he is fleeing for his life.
It's two completely different realities existing in the same city.
And without the internet, without journalists like Yusra Elbagir, it's incredibly difficult for anyone on the outside or the inside to verify which reality is true. And that uncertainty, it paralyzes people.
This brings us to the bigger picture. We have international observers there, right? Where does the African Union stand on all this?
That's a crucial piece. The AU observer mission is there, led by former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan. Their assessment was, let's call it, diplomatically nuanced.
Which usually means bad, but we don't want to cause an incident.
Pretty much. They reported that the actual voting day itself was relatively peaceful, so people could cast their ballots without major violence at the polling station.
Okay, so the mechanics on the day were okay.
But, and it's a very big but, they noted that the overall process was undermined. They cited the intimidation, the arrests, the abductions of opposition members leading up to the vote.
Right. It's hard to have a fair election on Tuesday if you arrested the campaign staff on Monday.
Exactly. It's the environment, not just the ballot box.
Yeah.
So the AE is acknowledging the playing field was tilted long before anyone voted.
So when you put all this together, the expulsion, the blackout, the huge victory margin, the mystery around Bobi Wine, what's the real takeaway here?
I think this is a perfect case study in what you might call modern authoritarianism 2.0. The old model was just ban elections or fake the nutters in a back room.
Right.
Today, regimes know they need the performance of an election for legitimacy. They need the photo op of people lining up to vote.
So they allow the vote, but they control everything around it.
They ruthlessly control the context. They control the inputs by arresting journalists, and they control the outputs by cutting the internet. It's not about stealing the vote count. It's about owning the narrative count.
You ensure that by the time the result comes out, there's no verified counter-narrative available to challenge it.
Exactly. The blackout buys you time. The expulsions buy you silence. And if someone like Yusra Elbagir tries to break that silence,
You escort them out for their safety?
it's chillingly effective.
Yeah.
And it leaves the citizens of Uganda in a very difficult position. They've voted, the results are out, but the entire process is shrouded in a fog that was manufactured by the state.
Well, we are going to have to watch how this unfolds. But for today, we have to wrap it up there.
It's a developing situation for sure.
Just to recap, Yoweri Museveni has secured a 7th term amid a nationwide blackout. The opposition leader, Bobi Wine, is either under protection or in hiding, and international journalists are being expelled to keep them safe.
A trifecta of information control.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with today. We keep hearing this word safety and this phrase prevent misinformation. If a government claims they're expelling journalists and shutting down the internet to ensure safety and stop lies, who exactly are they keeping safe? And what truth are they so afraid of you seeing?
That is the question.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be watching this one closely. Stay curious.